Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, September 3rd, 2020, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the 2020 Senate election map. We're going to be characterizing all of the states on your screen and talking about which party will take control following the November elections. So, we have a lot to dive into. We have a number of competitive races. Let's go ahead and take a look at all of the safe states. There isn't too much to worry about here. Now, I will say that the GOP did make a couple of mistakes in some of these races. That will be an entirely separate video. I do want to talk about those because there are some states that they really could have heavily targeted and made very competitive. But to be honest with you, they just failed to field a good candidate. They weren't able to find any notable people to run for these races, and, you know, they aren't competitive now. So we're going to characterize all of the safe states for the GOP as well. This includes a number of conservative states that are expected to vote for the Republican candidate by larger than 15%. That's my safe characterization, which leaves 17 at least mildly competitive races. As you can see across the entire South, for the first time, I would say probably in modern political history, the entire South practically is competitive. We have a competitive race in Alabama with a Democrat incumbent, two competitive races in Georgia, one in South Carolina, one in North Carolina, and Virginia. Actually, not Virginia. Take that out of the equation. That should be considered safe. But for Mississippi as well, I mean, Cindy Hyde-Smith is the incumbent. She is absolutely going to win her election, but it's not going to be by a 15-point margin or higher. Trump only won the state by 19%. He's definitely going to decrease, especially with the numbers we're seeing in terms of expected black turnout in this election, possibly even higher than 2008. Mississippi absolutely could narrow up to a 2012 margin of 9% for Trump, 8% at the peak for Biden. But Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia Senate Special, South Carolina, and North Carolina are all going to be races that are not safe, that could very well be considered to be toss-ups by the mainstream media. As you can see across the entire United States, we have some other Republican states that are solid on the presidential level: Montana, Kansas, Kentucky, Alaska, all states that haven't voted for a Democrat in decades. The last time Kentucky went blue was 1996. So, for a lot of these states, they typically don't vote for Democrats, not even in Senate elections. I mean, Montana, maybe. You could use that as an exception because of Jon Tester. Alaska, not really. They ousted their last Democrat in 2014. Kansas hasn't elected a Democrat in the Senate since 1932. In Kentucky, Mitch McConnell has held the seat for so long despite having an abysmal approval rating. So these races are all super competitive now and have a very real possibility of a Democrat winning here. The rest aren't too shocking. Iowa, Michigan, Arizona, Texas, Maine now are considered to be swing states, but Texas and Arizona definitely are a little bit surprising in terms of the numbers. So, likely states, let's move over to the states that are going to be within a 5 to 15-point margin, which means we're almost sure a Democrat's going to win here. Just it could, in a landslide for the Republicans on the entire Senate map, could move over into the Republican column. States that I'm talking about are Michigan. Biden is carrying Michigan. Gary Peters is winning Michigan. I think that's absolutely going to happen. Something would have to completely change and reroute the entire trajectory of the election for Trump to win in Michigan. For Colorado, Cory Gardner's out. Doesn't matter if Trump even wins Colorado, which is less than a 1% chance at this point. Colorado remains blue. I guess goes blue because it's a pickup for the Democrats on the Senate level. Colorado is long gone for Cory Gardner. Colorado, Michigan, two states that were competitive in 2016, no longer. Moving over into some other states for the Democrats, the final likely state, the only other state I'm going to consider to be likely, is the state of Arizona. I don't think that's too surprising. Arizona, yesterday's video shows you that there will be a little thing at the top right of the screen if you want to watch it. Mark Kelley is up by 17% according to an A-rated pollster, Fox News. They released data that showed Mark Kelley up literally with 14% of Republicans supporting him in Arizona. And the unfortunate reality for Republicans, this race was completely winnable. But you know what? They put up the person who lost 2 years ago. And that usually never bodes well. Maybe it works in some states. It's worked in the past, rarely, but it has. But this is not going to be one of those exceptions. Martha McSally is done for. And unfortunately for her, I think she would have been a traditionally strong candidate. I mean, she could have been a rising star in the GOP. She's a moderate. She's a veteran. She's a woman senator from Arizona. I mean, she comes from a diverse state, a swing state. She very well could have been considered as a possible VP choice. I mean, she's a good speaker, I would say. I mean, she's a good campaigner. It's just she was out fundraised, and outdone in 2018. She lost her Senate race, and then the fact that they nominated her immediately after her loss really ruined her political career. Because for this 1 year she's serving in the Senate is not worth the decades that she will be fading into political relevancy. Because she gave up her House seat, she gave up her Senate seat now because she's going to lose it without a doubt. I mean, Arizona Senate race is going to be blue even if Biden loses the state. And, you know, I would say this is probably one of the more poorly orchestrated calculations on Martha McSally's part, because she is single-handedly handing 2 Democratic seats following the 2016 elections. 2 Republicans 4 years ago. Following this election, it'll likely be 2 Democrats in the Senate. So, moving past there, let's talk about likely Republican seats. So, we actually saw new data out of Alaska that shows the race is a tie, but there are a whole lot of undecided voters. We're talking 14% undecided voters. So, I honestly think those undecideds are going to easily break for the GOP, but it could be competitive, which is why I'm considering it to be likely. For Mississippi, I think this state should also be considered likely. I think South Carolina and Kentucky should also join the likely bunch. Unfortunately for Jamie Harrison, unfortunately for Amy McGrath, even with her $45 million, doesn't make up for the fact that Kentucky is a traditional Republican state. I understand that I understand they may have voted for Democrats in the past, but you are not the one, and you are not going to be the one in a presidential election year. Sorry to the Democrats there. That race is not winnable. South Carolina, Jamie Harrison, as much as people would like to say Lindsey Graham is on his way out, he just isn't. Only internals show Jamie Harrison even competitive. In Mississippi, Cindy Hyde-Smith, she won the special election 2 years ago by an 8-point margin of victory. We could see something similar, but it's just not winnable. The Democrats always hit a peak in a number of these states, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Mississippi, or even Alabama in the 2017 special election. They weren't getting more than what they got, and they literally ran against a child predator. They have North Carolina, where they typically peak off at, occasionally win statewide races. Roy Cooper is an exception, but he only won by 0.2%. So there were a number of things in these states that typically, Democrats are going to peak off on. And while they may come close, they never really had a shot at winning. Same thing goes for Alabama Senate special, not Senate special election, Senate regular election. Actually, no. Yeah, no, this is the general election because Jeff Sessions won in 2014 with 97% of the vote. So Alabama, Tommy Tuberville is the Republican. He's going to win. Absolutely. It's going to be a likely margin just because I can expect a number of Republicans to split ticket, Trump ballot for the presidential race, and then for Doug Jones just because they may like him. Maybe he's bipartisan. You never know. He doesn't vote with the Democrats too much of the time, so it could be closer, but it's just not winnable at this point. I think Doug Jones, unfortunately for him, it's a done deal. In Georgia Senate special election, I'd also consider this race to be likely. I'm considering rating it safe after data that's being released day after day, or at least week after week, because they don't poll this too often, that shows the top 2 Republicans, making it to the runoff. And we see the Democratic challenger, the closest one, trailing by 11%, 13% to the second place position. Unless the Democrats coalesce around one candidate, they're not making it to the runoff. Georgia Senate special, likely at this point. Texas, this is the next state I'm going to move the characterization from lean to likely. We're going to see a number of race ratings change on this map from, in favor more of the Democrats, now in favor of the Republicans. Texas moves from lean Republican to likely Republican. John Cornyn will likely win this race by larger than 5%. So that puts the Republicans at 46, puts the Democrats at 48, 6 toss-up seats. So the reason why this map should be good for Republicans, because, if we apply the 2016 map, they carry Arizona, they carry Texas, they carry Iowa, they carry Michigan, they carry North Carolina, Georgia. Filling in the remaining 2016 states, it should look somewhat similar to this. Based off the 2016 election results, the Republicans should be winning. But they just aren't. And the reason for that is likely due to the fact that they have not fielded too many good candidates in some of these Democratic races, on top of having unpopular incumbents in Republican races, and just overall the entire states themselves moving further to the left. So Kansas is competitive because Roger Marshall or Chris Kobach were always going to make the race competitive. Chris Kobach would have been absolutely the worst, especially following what happened after he lost the primary. Whole number of things that happened with him in terms of fraud, but that's besides the point. He's not the nominee, so we're not going to talk about him too intently. Barbara Boyer will do very well in Kansas comparatively to other Democratic candidates in the past, but I don't think it's enough. I think that Kansas is going to go to the GOP by a lean margin. I think it'll be close, but I don't think the Democrats are going to win in Kansas. That leaves 5 toss-up races. Georgia, I've been wavering for quite some time now. I would say Georgia, I'm going to keep the characterization. I'm going to keep it as a lean Republican state. I think David Perdue is going to defeat Jon Ossoff. I think it's going to be inevitably close, but at the end of the day, Democrats have shown that whether it's due to voter suppression or whether it's just due to voter turnout, they peak in Georgia, and that's roughly at 48%. And I think Jon Ossoff knows that all too well, that 48% number. So looking at the state of Maine, I think that Sarah Gideon is going to do very well here. While Susan Collins is going to win over a number of Democrats and independents because of her record of being a bipartisan, these past 3 years have proven otherwise, at least to the Democrats in Maine. And I think that with the energy with the Biden campaign and him expecting to run up Hillary Clinton's margin in this state by 10%, Maine goes blue on the Senate level. For North Carolina, this is a state that also, I recently characterized as likely for the Democrats. I think it's going to be closer than that. I think it's going to be lean for the Democrats, but I will say that the Democrats are still expected to win it. And it's a Senate race that is going to be hotly contested. And I think Hal Cunningham is absolutely going to outperform Joe Biden's margin of victory in North Carolina. Looking at Montana, this is a state that I normally characterize for the Democrats. Steve Bullock is running for the Senate race here, but I honestly think Steve Daines at this point is going to take away a victory in Montana. I think that this state should be considered to be a total Republican state. I feel like I've been overestimating Steve Bullock's chances at winning here, but I still think that the race is going to be insanely close. And upon a closer look, at the state of Iowa, it's very hard for me to see how the Democrats and the Republicans, come away with anything more than a 1% victory. I think that Joni Ernst is in for practically a fight for her political career. Teresa Greenfield can very well move on from this and run for something in the future. But Joni Ernst came in as someone who was supposed to redo Washington. Her campaign ad in 2014 was very Tea Party-esque. And unfortunately for her, I do think that her connection with President Trump is going to bring her down. I think that Donald Trump is going to outperform Joni Ernst. I think people are upset with the fact that she was the Drain the Swamp candidate before Trump was running. And then, a lot of these ads are coming out saying, what has she actually done? With 6 years of serving as a senator, not much has changed in the state of Iowa. Not much has changed in the overall American political scheme. So Iowa, while having a firm opposition right now to her election, and she is underwater in the polls, I do think that Joni Ernst is going to narrowly take away a victory here. I'm going to stand by my tilt Republican characterization, finishing off the map at 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. But I think Iowa and Montana could be the two closest races that we see in the 2020 Senate elections. So, like I said, that finishes off the map with 50 Republicans and 50 Democrats. The winner, the party majority, the Democrats. If Joe Biden wins the presidential race, 50 seats is enough to get a majority. Vice President, at least what would be Vice President Kamala Harris, would break the tie if there was a 50-50 vote. But the Democrats overall would be in the majority because it goes to the Vice President's party. 50-50, Democrats are in charge. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link for you to go ahead and join. If you're wondering where my new thumbnails are from, they're from a YouTuber. His link is in the description below. Really, really helpful. So go ahead and check those out. It's under the comment Q&A on this description and every other video that I'm uploading from now. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.